CFL Report. The Lions and the Eskimos, the Bombers and the Argos. Winners on to the Grey Cup. Pre-game thoughts from last week's winners, Joe Farragelli and Bob Obilovich. And Leif Pedersen looks at key player matchups for the division finals. TSN CFL Report. It's our game around here, brought to you by Carling O'Keefe Brewery. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CFL Report. John Wells along with Leif Pedersen. Down to the wire. Weekend winners will head to the Grey Cup, and Leif will tell you exactly who they'll be a little bit later in the show. No big surprise last weekend in the division semifinals, except you were only 50%. You took the Stampeders.
Oh, well, I went with my heart instead of my brain. It seems to have happened a lot this year, but I think the Toronto game, pretty much as you and I talked about, the kicking game would decide it, and that's what happened. Bernie Ruoff couldn't come back and rescue the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Toronto, by far the better team. Out west, the Edmonton Eskimos just too tough at home. Rick Warman getting hurt late in the game, I think, didn't help the cause. But Calgary, nevertheless, had a great year, and I was sorry to see them lose, but the Edmonton Eskimos give them a lot of credit. They played well, and they'll give BC a run. All right, we'll look at that a little bit later on, and more on the matchups coming up. But right now, David Pratt from Vancouver with a quick preview of what's planned for the 75th anniversary of the Grey Cup next week.
Thanks, John. You know, there really is no place like Vancouver to hold a Grey Cup game. It's the only city in the country where you could hold a golf tournament as part of the week's festivities and then go indoors for the game.
Unlike the rest of the country, the West Coast is still nice and green this time of year. As a result, the golf tournament has already been sold out, which for some may be somewhat of a blessing. In fact, the entire city is already wrapped up in the festivities. The Grey Cup dinner is another event, already completely sold out.
Well, last year, remember, we had Expo here, so the city really kind of rallies behind whatever event happens to be taking place. Last year we had great support for Expo. This year we're having great support for Grey Cup.
The people organizing the festival have done all of their homework, and the results have been felt right across the country.
Good afternoon, Grey Cup Festival events. Okay, starting.
However, the BC Lions have also done their part on the local level.
The wall is going to throw it up. Touchdown!
Oh, it's very, very important. If you've got your home team playing, you've got all kinds of support. Like the fans come out in droves when you've got. In 1983, when we had the Lions in against the Argonauts, the support was so much different than it was last year when we had Hamilton against Edmonton.
The Grey Cup is still very much the focus of attention, but the league has also done a lot in selling the side attractions.
This is our 75th championship game, and we've done a lot of things to bring to the attention of everyone and to celebrate it, because there aren't an awful lot of leagues that have the opportunity to have 75 championship games.
So, from the Miss Grey Cup pageant at the Hyatt, to the parade down Beach Avenue, to the Shenleys at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre, to the game itself at BC Place, the stage is set for what should be a great show.
So if you're thinking of coming to Vancouver for the Grey Cup game, remember to bring your clubs. Now back to you, John.
Thanks, Dave. Grey Cup 87 will have all the stories covered. The CFL Report live from Vancouver, Friday, 7:30 Eastern. Nightly on Sports Desk, the updated reports, and the Shenley Awards Thursday night right after NHL hockey. Coming up in a moment, the East Division Final. Our preview reports. Welcome back. Still ahead in our special playoff preview, Leif Pedersen picks the winners. But first, a closer look at the Eastern Final. We have two reports. The first from Mark Jones with the Argonauts.
Thanks, John. The Toronto offense has sputtered lately. They've only scored 1 touchdown in the last 2 games, 6 touchdowns in the last 5 games. The defense, on the other hand, has been spectacular, and that has some members of the defense thinking that if the offense doesn't start to roll soon, then they'll start taking things into their own hands and put some points on the board. The dance is the Cabbage Patch. Cornerback Darnell Clash and middle linebacker Doug Landry move to their own beat. Both can turn a game around with 1 play.
Well, hopefully I can make a big play and make things happen for us because, you know, the time now, this is where we got to put things all together now. Hopefully I can get an interception and go all the way or make things happen out there. So defense got to make the big plays, and hopefully we can do it against Winnipeg.
You know, just try to get there. That's all too. You know, you can't say we might not, you know, have any turnovers. You know, offense might not need for us to score. You know, but we always go out there wanting to score. You know, that joy of scoring a touchdown for a defensive player is outrageous. You know, hey, you know, you don't get that chance too often. But you know, that's what it's all about. You know, just playing good ball.
Good ball is something that Willie Pless has played all year, but he was overlooked and didn't make the Eastern Division All-Star team. Tyrone Jones and James West did. With this in mind, Pless still feels he has nothing to prove against his Bomber counterparts.
No, I think I'm just going to go out and do my very best, like every game. You know, I'm not looking out for myself, I'm looking out for the team. And, you know, I can't stop doing what I do best just because I didn't get chosen as an All-Star. But I just want to contribute to the team.
Doug Tank Landry and Darnell Clash were supposed to do a little celebration dance after the Hamilton game, but they didn't get to do it because Landry was ejected before the game ended. They're hoping that they can do their little Cabbage Patch dance this weekend in Winnipeg after a win. But it'll be a tall order because the Argos haven't won in Winnipeg since 1981. Now for a look at the Bombers, let's go to Ron Deacock in Winnipeg.
Thanks, Mark. For the 3rd game in a row, the Bombers will play the Argos. They met in a home-and-home series to close out their regular seasons, and both games were physically punishing defensive struggles. This rubber match promises to be no different.
I really believe, you know, if there's ever description of the game that's going to be played, it will be a war. And the fact that, you know, for a game that we played in Toronto that was had no real meaning, there was a lot of emotion, a lot of hitting. And I'm sure you can expect the same kind of thing when they come here because it's all or nothing now, and there's no love lost between the two of us.
When you play a team 3 consecutive times, you get to know your opponent quite well. That familiarity can work both ways.
Both teams will look at what they've been successful with and stay with it, I believe, and also add a few wrinkles. So it keeps you off balance a little bit, and it makes you be very sound because there's not going to be a whole lot of surprises, and any little wrinkle you just better be ready for and have the ability to adjust to it.
The Argos' aggressive, swarming defense has allowed just 1 touchdown in their last 2 games. The Bombers hope they can strike early to get them off their game.
Anytime you can score on the first possession, it does make the defense think, what are we doing? And it makes them adjust to us. What they've done the last game is they've kind of made us make adjustments to their defense, and that's the opposite way it has to go. So we want them to make the adjustments to our offense.
I think it's important for us to go into the game knowing what we have to do against them, being prepared for the different types of defensive looks they give us, and then just go out and execute it.
For us to be successful, I think we've got to control the ball a little bit and get it into field position where if we have to punt, we're not punting from deep in our own end. And I think when you control the field position in a game, you get a chance to create turnovers and get the ball back for yourself that will put you in the position to score. And I think it's important that we move the ball and keep them from punting it always deep into our own end.
Winnipeg will have some added punch on offense with the return of running back Willard Reeves and wide receiver James Murphy. Both were sidelined for the final 2 games with Toronto. The Bombers will also have home field advantage working for them. Winnipeg Stadium has been a graveyard for CFL visiting teams lately. Winnipeg has won 31 of their last 34 regular season games and 5 out of 6 in postseason play. For CFL Report, I'm Ron Deacock. Now back to John Wells in Toronto.
Okay, Ron, thank you. Toronto head coach Bob Obilovich is on the line from Exhibition Stadium. Bob, these 2 teams don't like each other very much. Will it be hard to keep Argo tempers under control?
I don't think so, John. I think that we're really concerned about our own football team, and you know, we've already talked about that type of thing, and we're not going to take anything away from our intensity or aggressiveness, and hope that we can play a good, solid game, and what Winnipeg's does is their business. So it's going to be a hard-fought contest. I don't care how you look at it. You're going to see a lot of hard hits out there.
It seems obvious the Argonauts will have to score touchdowns, not just field goals, to beat a team like Winnipeg.
Well, if we can score 29 points, I'll take that, John. So I don't care how we get them. The big thing is to score more points than Winnipeg does.
No doubt the Bombers, though, are an explosive team.
Yes, they are, and I think the key thing for our offense, maybe even more so than scoring points, I mean, we have to score enough points to win, but is that if we can control the ball a little better and keep the ball away from that potent offense that Winnipeg has.
I guess the bad news on defense has to be the return of Willard Reeves and James Murphy to the Bomber lineup.
Well, there's no doubt about them being great players, and you know what they've done for Winnipeg in the past, and they're Shenley Award winners. So really, when you look at the matchup, look at all that experience that Winnipeg has. Tommy Clements, the quarterback, their great home field record, everything else. We probably shouldn't even show up for the game.
Good luck. Will you need it?
I hope not.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Winnipeg won 2 of 3 regular season meetings with the Argos. The last meeting won by the Argos. Any significance in that at all?
Oh, I think a great deal of significance, John. The Toronto Argonauts feel that now they can win, beat the Bombers. It's a tough order playing out there, as Bob Abilovich mentioned, but the fact that they won once this year, I think it really helps them as they prepare.
All right, let's look at the matchups. The Argonauts on offense. First of all, they're going to need more than Lance Chomek, I think, against the Blue Bombers. They'll need Gil Fenerty.
Well, I think he's really the key to their offense. Of course, you know, Darryl Smith has played so well this year, but Gil Fenerty with 150 yards last week. Now, he won't get that against Winnipeg's defense, but, you know, he's pretty good out of the backfield catching passes, too, and I think that's where the real strength lies for the Argonauts. Not only is he a pretty good runner, but I think he catches the football well, and they're really going to need that in Winnipeg.
Here's the key for the Blue Bombers defensively. James West, the man in the middle.
Well, he's up for Shenley Defensive Player of the Year. He's had a great season, and I think he'll have to have a good game on Sunday afternoon because he's going to have to play against Gil Fenerty and put pressure on whichever Toronto quarterback's in there.
The Winnipeg offense, well, Tom Clements is the key there.
Well, Tommy's had just a super year. He's up for the outstanding player in the country this year, and he does so many things well. Play action pass. He's got Willard Reeves. He can fake. He's got the great core receivers. But Tommy Clements is the kind of guy that has played so many playoff games. You know, as a coach, you don't have to worry about him and how he will perform. On defense for the Toronto Argonauts, Doug Landry has really become their leader. And I think that's probably the key acquisition that they made this year, getting him from the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And as we saw last weekend against his whole team, Hamilton, he really had an inspired effort, and he's going to have to continue that Sunday afternoon.
I think it should be a pretty good ball game.
I think it should be a great game, John. You know why? Because they're all fighting. They hate each other, and that's good because that's some good juice for a game to get going. There'll be some fights. You can count on that. I kind of like that football, but I think in the end, Winnipeg at home is just too tough.
All right, let's look at the tick marks right now and see exactly how it stacks up in Leif Pettersson's mind. The Blue Bombers are favored in the ticks, mostly down the right-hand side for the Blue Bombers. They have a draw in rushing. Also, Leif calls it even the front 7, and special teams is also even. But the Blue Bombers will win it, according to Leif Pettersson. And all that said and done, is it going to be close at all, or are the Bombers going to walk away?
You know what? I think the first half is going to be pretty close, and then I think eventually Winnipeg will take over and take control of the game. I like that attacking kind of defense, and I think it can be very disruptive to the quarterbacks of Toronto.
Leif Pettersson likes the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the Eastern Final on Sunday. We'll take a look at the Western Final when we return on the CFL Report. Welcome back to the CFL Report. Now the Western playoff story. BC and Edmonton, same teams as last year. The Eskimos won at home in 1986. This time the Lions have home field advantage, and that will be a major factor. 2 reports to set up Sunday's game in Vancouver. The first from Edmonton and Ken Chillibeck.
Thanks, John. It was actually just a couple of weeks ago that the BC Lions and the Eskimos met. Right here at Commonwealth Stadium behind me, the Eskimos had blown a lead. And in the last play of the game, the BC Lions won by 1 point. After that game, Eskimo quarterback Matt Dunnigan, very emotional, and he didn't have very much to say about that contest.
All I can say is we'll see him again. I don't care whether it's in BC Place or I don't care whether it's in London, England. We'll see him again.
The Eskimos now have that chance, and that loss is still very fresh in their minds. But too much emotion isn't good either.
It is kind of difficult to deal with, but we're going to have to temper it down a little bit and just play perfect football against the BC Lions because they're a super ball club.
The Eskimos this past year had the best offense in the league. They had a lot of success moving the ball. But in recent games, they've had problems finishing off their drives. They've had to settle for a lot of field goals.
I tell you what, we want to get those touchdowns. You know, we led the Canadian Football League in the history of the league. We scored more touchdowns than any other team. So it's this year. So, you know, it's very important for us to finish those drives off.
Well, we'd like to finish off some drives, but as long as we get down in scoring territory and come away with some points, that's the most important thing.
A big part of that Eskimos offense, especially recently, has been their running game. Both Milson Jones and Chris Skinner have been carrying the ball more and have had a lot of success.
They blitz so much you can catch them. You know, if you have the right play called and they happen to blitz in the wrong gap, it's a big play. Conversely, they can stuff you, you know, if they guess right. So it's just a guessing game a lot of times, and you know, if we can catch them a few times, I think we can get some real big plays off of the run against them.
We're going to just try to take whatever the BC Lions gives us, and you know, and they're going to do their best not to give us a lot. So if we can get a running game going, that'll help our offense out naturally. But if not, we'll just do it by air.
Over the years, the Eskimos and the BC Lions have certainly had some great games, and it's pointing towards another great one this weekend. Now with a look at the BC Lions, here's David Pratt in Vancouver.
Thanks, Ken. This is the 5th year in a row the BC Lions have made it to the Western Final, and it's the 4th time in the last 5 years that the game has been played here in BC Place. As a result, the Lions have become a team that fully understands what there is to win as well as what there is to lose.
The reason this man has a worried look is simple. Head coach Larry Donovan remembers what happened in last year's Western Final. The Lions were embarrassed 41-5. How much of a factor that will play on Sunday depends on who you listen to.
We got the revenge factor going in this year because I know a lot of guys remember that last year. I know I do. And I remember after the game last year, I remember saying, well, there's always next year. And we got the opportunity right now, so we got to take advantage of it.
Don't think about it. Haven't thought about it. You know, you can't afford to think about it because you lost a game, and it's just one of those things. You get on with your life, and you know, I hadn't thought about it since you brought it up.
What is very clear is the fact this game will be one of key matchups. On defense, the Lions must shut down Brian Kelly.
Brian Kelly.
The job on Sunday will belong to Andre Francis on one side and Keith Gooch on the other. No one in the CFL has been more effective in controlling Brian Kelly than Keith Gooch.
He's a passive guy. He doesn't say much at all. You know, he won't complain to me or Andre, but he'll complain to the referees. You know, oh, they're holding, they're doing this. But in actuality, he just doesn't like to get hit at all, you know.
As for the Lions offense, 3 weeks ago in Edmonton, it was just that, offensive. The key rests with the men up front.
If they give Roy any time to throw, we'll be able to, you know, work our patterns and get open. This last game on the grass with Edmonton, our linemen, you know, didn't have a real good footing, and it's tough to keep them guys from just bull rushing right on through. And anytime Roy has any kind of time at all, you know, he's going to find his target and hit it.
Should indeed the Lions win the Western Final, there will be a certain amount of vindication for this club. You have to remember, it was this same Edmonton team that ended the Lions' reign as Grey Cup champions this time last year. Now back to you, John.
Okay, Dave, thank you. Joining us now, Eskimo coach Joe Faragelli from his office in Edmonton. Coach, 2 losses to the Lions during the regular season. Specifically, what do you have to do to win in the final?
Well, I think we got to play exactly the way we played the second game, with the exception we can't afford to give them anything. You know, we had 17 points given up by the offense. 2 touchdowns they scored. They never scrimmaged the play. the block punt, and they took the ball out of the running back's hands and ran it in. So we know if we do not give them anything and we let them earn whatever they get, then we feel confident that we can do the job.
Is the turf at BC Place a particular problem for the Eskimos?
Oh, I don't think the turf, we've played on turf most of the time this year. Of course we love to play on grass, but we've been on turf in Saskatchewan and down east, Calgary, so I don't think that's going to present a problem.
But the Eskimos have had problems winning at BC Place.
Well, it's always difficult. I think the BC Lions have a great home record, as does the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and in fact ourselves. We've got a real fine home record. So there is a distinct advantage. It's a home field advantage. They're at home. We have to go in 2 days early. Be a hostile crowd, which we anticipate that, and so the advantage goes to the home team, and that's what you get when you win. When you finish first.
Coach, will you be able to get Brian Kelly open against the BC secondary?
Well, they're the toughest bunch in the league. I mean, the whole group. There isn't any one person that we can work on. We just have to work like heck and give our quarterback time to pick up all the halfback and safety blitzes and all the different fronts that they give you. And it's going to be difficult. It's not, it's not going to be easy. But we feel confident that, we can go in there and do some things, and maybe we not depend on Kelly as much as maybe the inside receivers or Stefan.
A classic confrontation, Eskimo offense against the BC defense. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, I think you'd almost have to say that that's their strength. Obviously, their defense is, they're really awesome. I mean, they had great DBs, great front, Stuman's back. I have a lot of respect for Brent Williams, and of course Glenn is an outstanding, and Konar, and all those guys are just super, and they've shown it. They lead every category in the CFL on defense, and we know we got our work cut out for us, and we're going to have to work like hell and battle them right down to the wire.
Thanks, Joe. Good luck.
Thank you, John.
Now, the Eskimo offense has great numbers on the season, but at times it has been a little inconsistent.
Well, it has, John. I think that's a fair statement to make, but I liked what Matt Dunnigan said. As long as we're moving the ball and we're getting ourselves in scoring position, we're coming away with points, that's a positive thing for an offense. You don't feel a letdown. Jerry Kurick has come in and done a pretty good job as their kicker, so as long as you're getting points, I don't think you can criticize them, and they can put them on the board in a hurry.
Let's look at some matchups then. First of all, the Eskimo offense versus the BC Lion defense, and really the key here might well be Brian Kelly.
Well, Matt Dunnigan has to play well too, but here's your favorite, Brian Kelly. I know he got your vote for the Shenleys. I'm going to let it out of the bag right now. Brian Kelly, you voted for it. But
secret ballot.
Time and time again, he makes the big play just when it seems like Edmonton's really in trouble. Here goes Brian Kelly. He's not fast, he's not flashy, but what he does is get the job done. And the fellows on BC's secondary, the two corners, Andre Francis and Keith Gooch, are going to have their hands full. Now, I disagree when people say you got to shut down Brian Kelly. You can't shut him down. He's going to catch some passes. What you have to try and do is not let him make the big play. Let him have 120 yards in receiving, but don't let him get 80 on one play for the bomb that kills you.
BC offense versus the Eskimo defense, and of course you have to look at Roy DeWalt as the key here, and he has struggled at times during the season, but come on of late.
Yes, he has. He's a much underrated quarterback. Tom Clements will be the All-Canadian this year, there's no doubt about that, but Roy has had a pretty good season, and I think, as you see here, this is one of the things he doesn't do much anymore, run the football, but he can do it, and in a big game like this, Roy DeWalt will pull out all the stops to get the win.
Stu Hill will lead the Eskimo defense. I don't think there's any question about that.
Well, I think the key when you play BC is to try and upset Roy DeWalt. If he gets in a pattern, he gets time to throw, he can really get on a roll. And a guy like Stuart Hill, who is the leader, he can cause some damage.
Leafs picks. It will favor the British Columbia Lions on Sunday afternoon. Rushing to the Lions, passing dead even, front seven even, the secondary and special teams to the BC Lions. You're not counting Henry Gizmo Williams in this at all.
Well, I'm really looking at strictly kicking game here, not kick returners, and I think Lou Pasaglia in BC Place is an outstanding kicker, and if it comes down to that, he can win it for them. BC Place is a tough place to play, and I think Edmonton's going to find that out.
Home field will be a big factor this weekend in the Eastern and Western Division Finals. The Grey Cup, according to Leif Pettersson, it'll be the Lions and the Blue Bombers. Back for a final few thoughts in just a moment. Welcome back to the CFL Report on TSN. Leif Pettersson, your last chance to change your mind if you want to. You like Winnipeg and BC.
John, you know, when it comes to playoff time, I go with what the bookmakers say. They call Winnipeg by 5.5, BC by 4.5. That's all I need to know. Those two teams are going to win. I feel sorry for you. You're going to have the tears go on Sunday afternoon when your Eskimos bite the dust. But that's the way it is. Winnipeg and BC next week in Vancouver.
Home field in the playoffs is very important. I don't think I can really disagree with your picks this week.
Oh, boy, it's huge. That's where you play all season to get that first place and the bye to the final, and it's a tremendous difference. You're healthy, you're rested, and you're eager to go, and they will.
All right. Join us again next week for the CFL Report. We'll be coming to you live from Grey Cup City, Vancouver, 7:30 next Friday on TSN. Thanks for watching.
TSN CFL Report. It's our game around here, brought to you by Carling O'Keefe Brewery.